ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a very, a very depressing potential episode. Yeah, I am. Oh, how come I watched this movie trash now?
I am then a Heartcaster, Dylan West.
I am they murdered my boy, Kirklin Patzer.
I screwed my boy. Yeah, go watch The Godfather. Much better movie than this. So that's where I gotta start off. We appreciate all the support on Patreon, especially Carl Ritchie. One, you went back, you were a $1 tier, you listened to Dragon Ball 1, we said we were doing it this week, you jumped to the $5 tier. We really appreciate you and everybody. Whatever tier you're at, you guys are supporting us big time, especially in these times when there's not much new content to talk about. One, you're supporting the channel and helping us keep the lights on, but also you're just giving us new stuff to talk about. Movies that, like for me and Dylan, we've never seen. Taylor and Kirklin, you had never seen Darkman, right?
Nope.
Exactly. So it's just like you guys have opened all our words to different movies and whatnot, and we're even going to review the Batman Arkham games. I'm so excited because Dylan Musk has to intake 3 Batman games and he has to play them. This is like a dream come true for me. So you guys have created some great content. So, and as always, you can find us, the video and audio feeds, all down below. Subscribe everywhere. And please, if you like what we do, give us a review on Apple Podcasts. We're trying to get to 200. We're very close. Social media, Twitter, Facebook, stay tuned. There could be some big announcement coming up. So I thank everyone for supporting us. And Carl, I definitely thank you. But I will start off with this review by saying, man, this was very tough, and I thought when Clay gave us, man, there's so many names here. When Clay gave us Cocktail, I thought that was a joke. But then as we started going, it's like, okay, I understand. Carl, when you gave us this, I feel like you wanted to personally hurt me because I've heard so much hyperbolic of this movie being one of the worst movies ever, and I'm not going to say much until we get more in just talking about the film. I can just simply say it meets it. And because lots of times when you hear that, it's just, oh, I don't know. Or people just, is that just hyperbole? Is that just because the Dragon Ball? I thought, is it just Kirklin because he's a fan? Or people like Kirklin, like, oh, he's just a fan. They really hurt his, IP, his fandom. And I've only seen now one Dragon Ball thing, but that last week shows it was a good movie, and it got me into the lore. And I've had people talk to me on Twitter and whatnot, oh, you could watch this version, and it got me interested at least a little bit in Dragon Ball to potentially maybe watch it one day or look more into it. Not that this is taken away, but if I had seen this would have done the exact opposite because this movie is dreadful. It is acid to the eyes. It is tough. It's the same way of like I talked about last week with anime and wrestling. It's the same way wrestling is filled with like really cheesy stuff and kooky characters and weird storylines. But when it's done well, it can be great. And I think with Dragon Ball Broly last week, that was done great in my opinion as from someone that's a new time viewer. Yeah, we had lots of questions, but someone on the back, I could appreciate it for what it was. This is like when like wrestling's at its worst, when something cheesy at its worst. This shows some things you got to be really careful how you adapt them, and this was really, really bad. So Dylan, I'll throw it over to you because we'll leave Kirklin last because obviously it's his baby, as he just said. They massacred him.
His boy, yeah.
But yeah, for me, I do not recommend this to anybody. Never watch this. I will never watch this again. You guys have said you do this before. I've never watched any of these movies in 2 parts, and I had to do this today. I had to shut it off. I had to take a break. I made some lunch, ate something else, and then I came back to it, and it was rough to get through. So, Dylan, did you love this movie?
That's really saying something because the movie's only like an hour and 20 or hour and a half or something.
And it's an hour 25, but the movie is actually without the ending credits. It's an hour and 16 minutes. That's how long the actual movie is, and it feels endgame length.
It felt forever.
It goes on for so long. I felt like I was trapped in a Twilight Zone episode. Like it was just still on my TV.
Yeah, no, this is joining the ranks for me of like the do-over and I don't know, like Rampage. Just like among the worst movies I've ever seen. I would honestly, this might seem like hyperbole, but I would easily drop this in my top 10 worst movies of all time.
I agree.
This movie is just horrid. And I think one of the big reasons for me, honestly, is like Dragon Ball, whether or not I'm into the story or whatever, I just think it has such a great style. I love the art style. I love how colorful it is. And even the music, like just all of that aesthetic quality is just there, and it makes it like just at least fun to look at. Whereas this movie, because it's like live action and because it's like in, I don't know, America, it just takes away from what makes like that aesthetic quality that Dragon Ball has so strongly. So like it doesn't even have that. And then, I don't know, when it comes to story, like it's funny, like when we talked about the movie last week and I was like, hey, what are the Dragon Balls? Like, what is the point of it all? And it's kind of like, oh, okay, you get these Dragon Balls and you get like this one wish. And I was like, okay, that's kind of a cool concept. But for some reason, that same concept explained in this movie just sounds really fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
that's like the worst idea ever. What are you talking about? I don't want to watch this. That's like the lamest plot ever. And like all of the characters are terrible. Like all the dialogue is, you've heard it 1,000 times before. It's like, oh, you're different, but I like different. Like just all that very generic cliche
Dirt.
dialogue. Yeah. Yeah, no, this movie is horrible, and it's not so bad it's good. It's just so bad. It stops halfway in that sentence. So I don't know. I honestly don't know if I have anything positive to say, unfortunately. But I don't know. I don't even know where to go from here. What do you got, Kirkland? What do you think?
Yeah. So this one, man, I literally lasted like years upon years of watching Dragon Ball, watching all these movies, watching all of Dragon Ball Z, just like loving that and not ever touching this, never seen a scene. And then here we go. We get some lucky Patreon.
This is your first time?
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever seen this movie.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Oh yeah, I avoided
This is-
this like the plague.
This is
and-
crazy.
Oh yeah, I know why. Man. Jeez, like just the poster was enough to be like, yeah, no, I'm never
Yeah.
watching that movie ever. And I hadn't seen a single scene, and then literally like the first literally less than 60 seconds in this movie, I was like, I can't believe I'm watching this right now. This is so terrible. I'm so mad right now because it's just like I love Dragon Ball for all the reasons Dylan mentioned and more. Like I love the art style, I love just the world that it creates, and like you get nothing of that in this. It's just you get the characters with the same names, and it's just like it's so disrespectful that he's got the same fucking name as Goku. He's like just some white guy going to school. He's like, oh, I'm getting bullied. Like I just want to go and get girls and go to these parties. It's just like, who the fuck is this character? Like I was so mad. Jeez, the green screens looked worse than Travis's right now with the like the green screen looked terrible. All of the action scenes were so like it literally felt like one of those spoof type movies where it's like, oh, let's just take like Scary Movie. They take like a horror movie and just go so over the top with cheesiness. Like that's what this felt like, but they were like trying to make it unique and westernized and all these things that make anime live action movies terrible. And man, I was so grumpy. Like I was like watching like a movie like Steel that we did for another retro. It was just, man, this is pretty bad, but like I'm having fun watching it because it's just like I want to know what happens next. For this one, like Travis mentioned, like it felt like Endgame length. I'm like, is this movie not over yet? Like, please get me out of here. It was really rough, and I will never watch this movie again. I will tell everyone to avoid this movie. It's just everything about it I did not like.
I feel bad for Taylor, who accidentally watched this movie last week for the other Dragon Ball because he thought this was the correct one, and now he's like busy tonight, so he couldn't be here for the review. I can't imagine watching this just for the sake of watching
purpose.
it.
Yeah,
No
like,
reason.
For the podcast.
You watched it for no
Yeah.
reason.
That is depressing. I
feel
will
bad for
I will
him.
say there. Oh, Travis caught me off surprise there. Is
Trying to
that
get-
the poster?
It's
Is that
Piccolo. No, it's just Piccolo.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do like that art style though with all these different like color tones with our logo. I'm actually liking.
Mhm.
I mean, anyways,
I'll keep 'em
back
up
to this
there.
movie.
Yep.
Yeah, so there were some things that I don't even want to say they're positive. It's just I noticed.
They were less negative.
So like, yeah.
noticed.
So like the whole King Piccolo thing, like that is an arc in the movie. He isn't like a flying castle like he is. It's way bigger, more elaborate. But like all these arcs are just shoved into one movie, whereas in the show, like it happens at different spots in the show. Like King Piccolo, that's like one of the last arc in the Dragon Ball like show that was before Dragon Ball Z. And I feel like that's why this was called Dragon Ball Evolution, not like Dragon Ball Z Evolution, because they do like it's mostly focused on the stuff that happens in Dragon Ball, like when Bulma and Goku meet. Like that's pretty much what happens in the anime, although like it's the dialogue is a lot different. Just their like motivations are a lot different. Just
Oh, in the show, is it not as good as this movie?
I'm just gonna say it's a lot different. Teach their own. Some people can't stand anime, so maybe they'd prefer this. But I think the anime version is miles upon miles better than this. Like this, it just doesn't make sense whatsoever. Like Goku's just in the woods with his grandpa training for martial arts. Which like why? Like like, is there a reason? They don't explain that he came to Earth on like a pod. They don't explain.
They show very quick flashes of it.
Yeah, like they don't. Like, it just okay. You just trained so that one day, like the one thing that'll save the world is within you. It's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I just want to go to school. Like, it just didn't. It didn't mesh like together whatsoever because they're trying to have a Western version, right? With like, oh, let's bring the popularity of Dragon Ball into this world that we're making, and it did not work whatsoever.
That's
I
actually,
hated it.
it's funny that you mentioned that because one thing that I don't know, one thing that's it started to bug me in like the last couple of years is just like the kind of chosen one storylines where someone's just kind of all powerful or destined to do this thing, so they kind of have like plot armor to do that thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because in this movie, like there is like a kind of a training sequence at the beginning, and then Goku is like carrying all this stuff on his back, I guess, as like more training. But it doesn't feel like any of that stuff really matters. Like, it's just extraneous, like almost like comedic scenes to like, it doesn't even matter. He is this all powerful thing and he's going to win anyway because he's Goku. It's so much less interesting than obviously Dragon Ball Broly, like just puts you in the middle of a ton of story that's already happened. But I don't know. I thought that was kind of a little bit weird as well.
Yeah. I found it really strange too, because like in the show, like Goku's just naturally way stronger than everyone. Like his skin is like stone. Like he's just not made out of normal human parts, right? Like he's literally an alien. And from this one though, like when they're doing their training with like that's supposed to be Grandpa Gohan, who is all the casting in this dude just made me so angry. But yeah, so he's training with his Grandpa Gohan, and then like obviously Grandpa Gohan's on like a way another level than him, but like still he's getting his ass slapped. But then he goes to school and like these school bullies are just like fucking him up, and it's like, are you kidding me right now? Like this guy is literally supposed to be just like an alien, like literally just superhuman strength, and he's just getting bullied. And then
Fuller,
like,
you ran over my bike.
That's what I love too. And he's like, "Oh, I'm getting bullied at school, Grandpa." No, they're not bullying you. They're committing criminal acts against you. They physically ran over your bike, destroyed it. That is a crime. That is, you don't even need to stand up for yourself. No, go talk to the principal. Talk to the police. It was everything.
Yeah.
It felt the same way those like really old Disney Channel movies felt like, where everything
100%,
is really
100%.
hyper like active. People are really overreacting. There's just you get like little beats of the story, but you don't get nothing. They obviously kept like the most bare minimum to not freak out the mainstream audience. Like there's no speak of Goku having a tail in this one whatsoever.
No, yeah.
There's nothing like, and like you talk about, they show little clips of him flying to Earth or like the grandpa finding him, but you still at the end of the day you don't really get told what's happened. And like, I know I'm jumping to the end, but I couldn't imagine. So I thank goodness we watched Dragon Ball Broly last week, and you gave us the history lesson. Because if I was watching this movie and all of a sudden he turned into a fucking ape and I had no idea why, I would have lost it. Because in this movie it gives you no context. It's just about how he has the power, and then what's his power? He turns into an ape. He turns into a gorilla. That's what the whole power is. It just like, at least I had that buffer, because I would love to see someone that's never seen that before. Like, what's going on? And then they never really explain the chosen one. They never They don't explain anything. Usually that's what you do, and it's not like fucking Last Jedi or Force Awakens where you know you're getting a trilogy. You gotta just go for it. You need to hope that there's a chance that, you know, like even with Luke in Star Wars, did they explain little bits and pieces why he's the chosen one? No, but they give enough backstory of like, okay, you were born this way, your father was the Jedi, this is why you're the chosen one. Why? Because your father was a masterful Jedi and he's passed it down to you. Why are you the chosen one? Goku, you're the chosen one. Why? That's it. You don't get it's just everyone just tells him that you're the chosen one, and he's constantly losing, but not in the sense of like, oh, the character's building and growing. It's just, no, this doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah, it was, that chosen one stuff was really hammered down. Like obviously most of this movie was really poor, but that also was really poor. And I wonder, with this movie being an hour 16, I promise you there is so much footage cut in this movie. There has to be more.
Yeah. I agree for sure. I wonder if they were ever like, do we do the tail?
No,
Like,
there's no way. Piccolo was a stretch enough for them, I think, to put like the green monster guy in there. There's no way they were gonna like have the main character be about a tail or anything like that. Maybe it was mega successful in the sequel. They had mentioned that they had to cut something off, but I think 100%, because this movie just seems like castrated. Like it just seems like
Oh,
they took
yeah.
the bare minimum, and this is why it's in my trivia. But the reason this movie got put into production is because the writer strike's happening, and it was pushing a lot of things forward. And we've talked about this with Spider-Man and other things. The rights were about to expire, so they made this movie so they could keep the rights. This is now technically a Disney movie, if you didn't know, because it was a Fox movie if you saw at the beginning. So technically, Disney, I think they own like the international rights or something like that. It wasn't on Disney Plus, and I can see why. Even though it's PG, I don't think they want them anywhere. Like, look at the ending shot of this movie when they jump to each other and they have like their leg and they're about
Oh
to.
my
Oh my!
gosh.
It's so bad. But
It's so bad.
yeah, this movie was forced into production, so the rights didn't expire.
Feels like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like the Great Ape version that we were discussing last week. That was so depressing too, because I knew it was coming, because I think he would like touch up like one of the Dragon Balls and then he would just like get like a flash forward
Yeah.
of what's gonna happen, and then it showed like some like ape eyes that just looked like a werewolf, and I
Yeah.
knew it was coming, and I was so pissed off because in the anime version, like he's literally a giant, like he's like Giant Man, you know, like Big Ant Man, like when he goes
Wow,
the
okay.
giant form, like that's the size that he is. Whereas this one, he's like the size of The Rock now, you know, like he's the size of Dwayne Johnson. Like he's not a superhuman thing. He's just an ape. And I was, again, could have been budgetary thing. Maybe they didn't have a big enough green screen, all these things. I don't think it would have helped whatsoever if it had a normal size, but just everything that they like touched upon to be like, here, fans of the originals, you know, like we got your content in there. It's like, you fucking butchered it. And I'm so mad that they went near it. And I'm just so mad this exists. Like, God, it's so depressing to be like an actual fan of the Dragon Ball series, and if someone like sees this and they're like, "Oh, Dragon Ball sucks," it's like you don't even like this is like I'm so mad it even shares the name.
Yeah, I was kind of curious, like, yeah, obviously I mentioned at the top I really like the art style and the colors and stuff, and I was curious, like, okay, what are they gonna do for the costumes for this live action Dragon Ball? Like, are they gonna have some cool looks? Nope. No. I can't think of a single memorable look from anyone in this movie. Like they like, first of all, they look absolutely nothing like the anime equivalent, which, you know, would be really, really difficult to do, but you could at least match some color schemes. So like Bulma could have had, like, I think she has like a turquoise streak in her hair or something, but you could have at least given her some turquoise hair or something cool like that. But no, it's, yeah, I don't know. I found that part really disappointing. Like Piccolo just looks so fucking weird. He looks like what's the guy from Captain Marvel? Like the
Skrulls.
He looks like the Skrull.
Talos and everything.
Or
Yeah.
Talos, yeah, that's his name.
He looks exactly like Talos.
Yeah, the one outfit
weird.
I'd say that looked, I mean, they at least like tried, was like the Master Roshi character. Again, the guy didn't look anything like him, but like he always wears like a Hawaiian type shirt, and he was wearing that, so it's like, okay, yeah, I can see some similarities there. But like even when Goku puts on like the gi, like the famous orange gi that he just found in his grandpa's you know like basement or whatever the hell it was, I'm like, man, he should have just wore like a hoodie, like even like when he was going to school and he just had like the colors of like the orange and blue. It's like, okay, yeah, you know, he kind of, I see what you're going for there. But when they actually have like the full-on gi, that like he doesn't get it from his grandpa in the original show, he gets it from like his actual master Roshi when he's training with him. And God, man, just the location of everything, like his house is just in the middle of like this city, when in the actual show he's like on an island. Just so many things. I was just so pissed off watching this. It sucks when you're actually invested in a show and then you see something like this. Again, it is running along the lines of all these other anime live action movies that have come out, because I don't think I've seen a good one since they've started doing them. I mean, this is by far the worst.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, that was the part I really found interesting about Broly last week, is just the locations, right? And obviously you can't have the budget to even like do, I don't know, a quarter of that, but I don't know, when they're just like cruising through like the Arizona mountains, I'm like, I don't care. Like, why is this interesting? I guess they get to like a volcano at some point, which is kind of cool, but even that is like, the CGI is so bad that it's like hard to get invested in it.
Fuck, what are you doing? Making a bridge.
Yeah, that was so terrible. Like all of those dummies or whatever they was throwing. Like, oh man, that was such a bad scene.
It's so, it's ridiculous too, because like we've already mentioned, like the world of Dragon Ball, it's so ridiculous. Like there's literally dinosaurs, there's dudes that like, there's samurais, but there's also futuristic buildings, flying cars. Like it's just such a melting pot of just different like fiction and nonfiction like societies in the
Yeah.
past and future, right? Whereas like they kind of do something like that because they have like the capsule core, but that's mostly just like a high tech like weapons manufacturer, right? Like they don't really go into depths too much of what they actually do. And then like just they're randomly at a volcano now. Like again, if that was anime, if it was animated, I would be like, okay, yeah, I'm totally down for this. But like when they just show up at a random volcano, it's like I don't know where they are, I don't know how they got here. But
Oh
let's
no,
just-
they
Fuck.
top everywhere, and with no like span of how long is this taking, days, weeks, whatever it is. They're just it just feels like they're fast traveling, which is great for them. And it's funny. Another thing I had in my trivia was they felt like they had to cut back some characters to not confuse people. There's already too many characters in just this fucking first movie. So like, you have the grandpa and the master, that's fine. You have the love interest. You have the girl with the streak hair. You're gonna have to fill me on some of them. Who was the guy that came in that had the bleach blonde hair tips out of he was not needed in this movie, and then they forced some like love thing into like him and what did you guys say that her girl was named?
Bulma.
Bulma.
Bulma,
What is
so-
her story? Like, what's her character in the anime?
So she's a pretty big character in the Dragon Ball series. You meet her in the first episode, like with Goku. She's basically the one that explains to Goku like the Dragon Balls, because he has one. He doesn't know what it is. He just it's something that his grandpa gave him. But she tells him like the story of the Dragon Balls. You collect them all, you make your wish, and then they go on their adventure together. And yeah.
So she's like is she just a friend? Is she a love interest of Goku or
No, she's like a lifelong friend. Like
Okay.
they become friends forever. Vegeta,
Yes.
like from the last, that's her husband.
Oh, okay.
And then that relationship like develops in Dragon Ball Z and stuff.
Okay.
And then like she's just a character that's been around forever. And then Chi-Chi, so the love interest,
Yeah.
which
that
was just
fucking twist.
Fuck, man.
That was
yeah.
terrible. Like, oh, this is why I invited you to my party to tell you that I was a part of
Yeah.
this. Just tell them.
Fuck.
You don't gotta do like. And why the party? That's such a strange situation where to do it. This big thing in public. And man, I know we'll probably touch upon again, but that fight scene with the bullies where he's making them hit each other, and he's like head spinning on the car at points. Oh my god! It was.
And like going back to just like the terrible of him being the chosen one, him like being a masterful like martial artist, he's training with his grandpa, but then he gets beat up by these bullies on the first day of school. What happens between him and going to the party? Like he's just like gains confidence. He's like, oh yeah, I forgot I could fight. Let's fight these guys now. Like literally nothing happens between then. So I don't understand why it's such a like issue with them in the first place. Oh my god, it's just I was pissed. And then like the whole love situation, like one of the bullies was just like dating Chi-Chi. And then it seemed like, I don't know, it was just a really cheesy, over the top, like.
Yeah, it
fucking-
just seemed like we never knew what happened there. It seemed like he got his ass kicked and she dumped him. Like okay, Goku's the guy, and I don't know. That whole thing was riddled, and then she just kind of appears and disappears because they do that weird thing, and this is where maybe my brain just turned off. But at one point he like strikes her and she gets unconscious, but then doesn't she write off and just say she was like she was faking it or something like that?
It's like, oh, I'd let you hit me or something.
Yeah, and it's
something
just-
like that with the line.
It was weird that they kind of almost took her out completely of the finale. They like established that she was there to fight, and then what happens is later on he like, I got one more thing to do, and he goes back to the dojo, and they have this terrible kiss. Like they have a kiss that feels like it's in a Deadpool movie, but Deadpool is spoofing it, or he's actively like making fun of it. It's like the music's happening, everything like this, and this is where. So there's tons of flaws in this movie, but I think the biggest flaw is they didn't decide what they wanted this to be. They couldn't decide, did they want this to be the Dark Knight, where it's like Batman, the guy Bruce Wayne dressed up in a bat costume. It's fucking weird and can be kind of stupid, but what we're going to do in Dark Knight, we're going to take it as serious as possible. We're going to make this like an Oscar type like movie. And obviously I'm not saying Dragon Ball needs to be an Oscar movie, but are they going to take it the serious, realistic as possible, even like an MCU route? Or are you going to go just the wacky Tarantino, Deadpool, just in your face, go for the style? And the movie kind of goes back and forth where sometimes it feels like it's supposed to be more dramatic, but then there's that scene where it feels very anime-ish, but in this movie it does not work when he has that daydream about her and the school falls apart and then she's in a meadows and then she's like taking the strawberry and rubbing it around her mouth like it's a fucking porno. And that's where it's like, if the whole movie's just wacky and cheesy, that's fine. But there's so many times where the movie tries to take itself seriously where somehow the anime finds a great balance. Same thing with Tarantino. I think with Kill Bill does that. Dill Bill coming this season.
No.
But like, we've talked about it before, when you do like really serious stuff and comedy, there's a fine line, and there's only so many people that can pull it off. That's why it makes sense for Dragon Ball, because they've been doing it for years, and that creator has it down pat. And same thing with the Tarantino, and same thing what we talked about in our last newscast with Deadpool. There's certain IPs where you can find that right mix, but when it goes terrible, it's one of the worst mixes you can do. And to me, that's this movie where you're supposed to be taking it seriously, but then this dream sequence came in, and I was offended while I was watching this. And I know it feels very anime-ish, but that's where you got to adapt it the right way. And clearly, as we've talked about many examples, but for me, that's one of the biggest ones. Just it's not adapted at all the right way, whether it be the characters, the lore, or just the kind of vibe of what they go for. It was a major strikeout.
Definitely. Sorry, I was just gonna quickly say, like, I like the point that you mentioned where it didn't seem like they knew whether to go full realistic or like still have the anime vibes, because it like they're explaining things as if it would like fit into a real world, you know, like they're explaining like the energy readings that come off the ball, and then like I don't know, like it's kind of hand wavy, but they at least try to explain a little bit, as opposed to just be like, oh yeah, they're just magical balls that are just around, you know, which would have been like the more anime version. But then you got Master Roshi just leaping out of this hole. You got just really cheesy scenes like you mentioned when he's in the classroom. Just like it was just a mixed bag that you didn't know what you're gonna get in which scene. You'd be like, okay, I could see how this scene would end if they're going the realistic version, but they're obviously not, because it's just such a mess. And is a good observation by you mentioning that.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of makes me curious, like, who is this movie really intended for? Like, and I guess that's where I have a question for you, Kirklin. Like on our Broly episode, it was fun because we had tons of questions about like the lore of the world. Can't say this movie sparks any of that for me, but I'm curious, like, because let's say if you watched this movie when it first came out, which I think is 2008, 2009, something like that, right?
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, so at the time, Kirklin, you're younger. You have seen all of Dragon Ball, maybe all of Dragon Ball Z. What do you think you would have thought about this movie at the time? Like, would you have gotten some entertainment value out of it? Because obviously, like, I don't know, all these characters are making these goofy jokes, and there's like some cool fight scenes.
I think Dylan brings up a good point, because to me, like when I watched Batman and Robin as a kid, which is hit as like a terrible Batman movie that everyone jokes upon, laughs about, kill the franchise. As a kid, I didn't know any better. I was like, this is Batman to me. I'm seeing this. But then when you get older, you go, oh, this was really rough. But I didn't live through that, so I already had the fandom. So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think I would still be pretty like distasteful for it. I think like just seeing a poster, I'd be like, oh, that is interesting, because then I could see like what the Dragon Balls would look like in real life. Right. But then, and again, this is me being young and naive, but even then I feel like after a while I'd come to my senses and be like, wait a minute, they're like just redoing, I mean, not really redoing his origin, but just massacring it. Like especially if I had seen it and like saw, because at that point I had already seen Dragon Ball, right? So I already knew his origin. I knew how he got on his quest. I knew how he met all these people. I knew his attitude. I knew he wasn't some like teenager that wanted to just like go to parties and like just like fuck. Yeah. It's just so unlike that character, and I think that's why I was just so offended, because Goku's probably one of my most like he's probably one of my favorite characters out of any like fiction.
And
right?
You'd be like,
I've been there,
this
man.
isn't my Goku. Like,
yeah, no,
Hunka.
And like you just mentioning like who is this movie for? I feel like they are trying to make it for just like Westerners who had seen the show, because obviously the show had originally came out like late 80s, so it would have been done by this point, because some of the themes they touch upon are in the show. It's pretty different from how it turned out, obviously, but it is there, like Goku meeting Chi-Chi, not how it happened whatsoever, but they do meet and they do fall in love, so I guess that's that, right? King Piccolo, he's coming to take over. It's not really explained the same way, but it does happen. And fuck yeah, one of the worst ones for me was like Gohan's death. Oh my god, I was such an eye rolly. Like when he just like brings the house down. In the original, it's such a big like moment, because Goku's the one that killed him, and he didn't know that he did it because he was in the giant ape form. And then like it's revealed later on while you're watching the show, and it's like, oh shit, that's crazy. But this one is just like, oh no, the house just came down. And then fuck, man, I was rolling my eyes too, because when I think he was at the no, it would have been after, when Chi-Chi's like, oh, I heard about your grandfather, I'm so sorry, what happened, the house came down on him. It's like, is that just a regular thing? Like, did no one ask like what the fuck happened to his house?
How'd you lose your grandfather? The house fell on him.
Yeah, I told him it was gonna happen any day, and he
Yeah.
didn't listen. He's stubborn. But yeah, like to answer your question, long story short, I feel like it's for those fans of the Dragon Ball show that they could be like, oh, just see a Western version. But
100%. I think because not only because we have the
Yeah.
information of the writer's strike, I think it is just it's some guy in a studio saying we have this IP, Dragon Ball Z, and you know what? It makes this amount of money, it has this amount of fans, and if we don't make a movie, it's gonna run out. Hit some of these points, and I got some trivia about the writers. There's not much trivia because all the trivia is just all the actors and people really regretting and talking about how bad. Like all the actors in this cite this is their worst film of their career. This just feels like everybody is just like looked at and be like, man, I wish I wasn't part of that. But I think it's just some guy tried his best or a team tried their best to do anything. But it's like you got this amount, like they literally you got this amount of time to get this movie done. It's your job. Do it. So it's like, and save budget, don't make it too long and all things like that. So I think it's just put it on theaters and we'll try and make a quick buck off it. And then plus we keep the rights because then we can do this again down the day. But I think it's just for Kirkland, he'd never seen it. So I was surprised, but for people, it didn't do well. It was a bomb. I'll actually get the full on financials, but I think they were just hoping that anybody that likes Dragon Ball will go see this, and hopefully we'll make a quick buck about it. Who cares if it's good or bad? And yeah, go. You start on Sunday. Start writing the script. You know.
Right. That's the most
Yeah.
likely solution, or
Yeah.
I guess reality of what happened.
yeah, fuck man, when the movie was over and I was just like reading the credits, I'm like, I feel so bad for these people. Like imagine being like, oh yeah, I worked on this movie, and
Oh,
it's just like, what movie? Oh,
Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball. Have
Yeah.
you've heard? Just like brushed on the rug, like even for like the fucking electricians on like literally like the people that built the set. I'm like reading their names, and I'm just like, man, I feel bad for these people. Obviously, they got a job out of it, but
Oh yeah.
I was just depressed.
And
at the end of this movie.
looking at the box office, the budget was $30 million. It made a box office of $58 million. So when you put in advertising, it kind of just broke even. So it wasn't a bomb. It was just a bomb in the sense of it became. I remember I had no interest in Dragon Ball, so I had never seen it. And when people say, "Hey, there's a movie you're not interested in, and it's one of the worst movies of all time," I'm not gonna go check that movie out. So I never did. But that was the thing. It just became so like money wise, it broke just even. Maybe made them a few dollars or lost them a few dollars. But I just remember that year of 2009, it being a butt of a lot of jokes. Like before there was like real memes on the internet, it felt like Dragon Ball Z had me. It felt like because this came out the same year Wolverine Origins did, and it felt like this and Baraka Pool, where Ryan Reynolds was messed up, had meme potential even before that was a thing. So yeah, it was a box office disappointment, but nothing huge other than just people just hate it. The scores everywhere. I actually didn't check IMDb to see if it rates on the worst movies because we've had two. We had Steel and what was the other?
Catwoman.
Catwoman, right? Those are two
Yeah.
movies that we recently have done that check Catwoman on Patreon that are in the top 100 worst movies.
Oh wow.
And
Quite an honor.
this is number 17
Yeah.
on IMDb. This for fan voted the 17th worst movie of all time, rocking a 2.5 out of 10.
Damn.
But this is the different. Remember with Steel, we saw 5,000 votes, and it's like, okay, who the fuck actually took time on this? You could tell these were angry, salty fanboys. 68,000 people went to go vote on Dragon Ball Z's rating, so you could tell they saw us and they were pissed and like we're killing this, you know.
It's interesting because I think around 2011 was when I like jumped back into Dragon Ball, like really started jumping into that. That's probably when I got into like anime and stuff. So I feel like this kind of flew under the radar for me because I just wasn't really like wrapped around the whole Dragon Ball stuff at that time. But man, like I follow like Dragon Ball Z pages, like just like other accounts, and this is just a reoccurring meme of. I mean, you can just imagine some of the memes that it's just referenced to. It's just something terrible, and it to this day, it's just such a joke in like that community.
Well, that's why it's tough to talk about because like I have like some notes that I've brought up, but it's just there's not much to really talk about. It's just that there's a bunch of action. It's a bunch of characters you learn nothing about. You learn Goku wants this girl and he's the chosen one. That's it. Everybody else is just reacting to Goku and they're after the balls. And then the master is like a pervert who they do this ass grabbing joke multiple times. And we talked about that before where like in anime, they do sometimes kind of have that humor. But when it was in this movie, it feels very creepy and it feels very uncomfortable, and it's just especially too later on they try and give them this emotional death scene, and I just continue to hate this part where he's the ape, he kills his grandfather, he doesn't react to that till like 10 minutes later after he fought Piccolo. After that he kills his grandfather, he looks down and Piccolo says something like, "How'd you go back?" And then Goku just looks up as a bad. He's just like my grandfather said, the first rule is there are no rules,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he
Oh.
starts fighting again. And then later on, like I said, after the fight, the movie's had its climax. He runs over to his master, he gets on his knees, and he's crying. But it's like you saw, he clearly puts two and two together that he killed this man. But he's like, I'll react to that later. And then he goes to fight. Like that to me would have, if you're writing this, would make more sense. That should make him emotional, and that should add towards the fight of like, you just made me kill this man I respected or love. I'm gonna take you down. But no, it's just like an afterthought. It's like that scene didn't happen, and they shot that fight like out of order or somewhere else in the script, and then after the scene, like, oh right, we killed off his grandfather. He has to be really, or not his trainer's grandfather's friend. And it was the editing already in this movie was poor, but just in that finale especially, it was not just talking about CGI, just the editing and pacing of everything was. It was very poor, and it was even just hard to understand where they're running around in the fight. And you had that guy with the hair sacrificing himself, but not really. In the show, do they use guns?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I wasn't sure just because everyone's just so mixed martial arts and fighting. So, okay, so I can give them that. I just wasn't sure if that was like oh, yeah, we don't want everyone to be doing kung fu. Putting some guns in there. But I wasn't sure because even in Broly we watched, like, I think we saw some guns, but none of those were being used by main characters or main
Yeah.
plot points. So,
It's like they're definitely in it. Like I said, it's just a melting pot of everything in this world. But like in the Dragon Ball world, like guns are so just ineffective. Like when Bulma first meets Goku, she like shoots at him because she just doesn't know what he is,
Mhm.
and then the bullets just like bounce off of him. They just have no effect in the show really.
okay.
Yeah. Jeez, fuck. I was gonna just dissect more scenes that I just hate, but I mean I could do that for everything because just every interaction they have, like with each character, it's just like they just tried to do something different from what the original was, and I just got like angry because I'm not attached to these actors playing these characters that I've just grown to love. So it was so tough. I will mention though, like Yamcha, so that's the blonde dude that you're asking about, Travis.
Yeah, he was awful actor.
Oh yeah, he was
Awful.
awful.
Yeah.
This is,
Oh yeah.
back to that strawberry thing, he could have been from a porn set, and I would have believed it. Like, hey, you want to come? Like, I know you just came off that set. You want to come over here and just do like our guy? He read the script, he didn't like it, so he left. You want to just jump in here? And why? Why did they introduce him? And they make him a love. Like, I know I said this already, but it triggers me every time I think about it. He's just another character. It's useless. It's just
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
my
so
boy.
many like
Oh, my
like
boy.
things that happen in the show that they do happen, or sorry, that happen in this movie, but they do happen in the show, but it's like drawn out through like multiple arcs in the show. So like Bulma and Yamcha, like they
Mhm.
do kind of like fall in love with each other for at least a brief time, but
Yeah.
like in this movie, it's just okay. They're just
They just
the
want
two
a
characters
bone.
that we need to have a
Yeah.
kiss on screen within 100 or an hour and 16 minutes, right? And then fuck was the other one I was gonna mention? Oh woof, I forgot it. It was definitely forget. Oh, it's just like the Chi-Chi and Goku stuff. Like
Yeah.
Chi-Chi like falls in love with Goku really early in the show, and like Goku just he kind of I don't know, he's just such a dumb person, like written as a character that like he doesn't really know what that means because he grew up in the woods. That's something that's so different from this movie. In the movie, he's going to school. There's nothing really different between him and any other kid except for he trains with his grandfather, like a crazy person on these ropes after school and before school. But in the original, like his grandpa's dead by the time the show starts, and he's just living on his own in the woods. Like he doesn't know who people are really. It's
Okay.
just the only person he's ever come in contact with is Gohan. So then the show is like him being introduced to like this wonderful world and just experiencing it through his eyes. But this is just something so different.
This is like a
and-
prequel almost. It's like a prequel / like in the series, right? If you think about it,
Fuck.
because the
I
grandpa
don't wanna
stuff.
think about it. I was so tuned out from like the first minute, like I said, but like
Oh yeah, when they're
being
fighting
so-
on the ropes and everything, it's
oh
like,
my
oh
god,
stop doing
being
this,
so
please.
uninvested in something, but it's still being so terrible that when something happens, like just the super corny stuff with him fighting the bullies at the school, or his really awkward dialogue between him and Chi-Chi, which is
Yeah.
like, every time you light a candle, you can take one step closer. Just like shit like that happening. I was just getting so furious. And then the fucking great ape, when he just grows like 2 inches, he's a little bit girthier. I was just so pissed off. Man.
CGI
I
to
was so
fuck.
upset.
Like they had no budget for that ape. What? So here's the other question I have. So when in the series, and this obviously this movie has nothing to do with the series really, but with the ape and the Super Saiyan stuff, what does he do first?
Great ape for sure. The great ape happens like episode 6 or 7. Super
Okay.
Saiyan doesn't get mentioned at all in Dragon Ball. It comes in like episode 167 of like Dragon Ball Z. So it's not even in
Wow.
this series.
So to me,
Yeah.
don't you think, even though they've fucked up the canon, they've done so much stuff in the show, why do you think they, to me, from a budgetary standpoint, don't you think it would be like, I guess they're trying to appeal to the fans, but they haven't this far. I feel like you should just jumped right to Super Saiyan instead of the ape, because that ape looked terrible. But I imagine just like CGIing or dyeing his hair for a scene and then adding some stuff around him would have been much easier. And I know that would have maybe triggered you as a fan, but it's not like they haven't done that already. So I just wonder from like a point of view for like a studio where that has cut so many corners already in this movie, why they really felt like we got to get the ape in here. I was quite surprised, and like I said, I didn't know the progression of an ape. Like I didn't know.
Right.
I mean, like the Super Saiyan versus the ape. You know.
Yeah, like the thing with the ape is it does happen like within the Dragon Ball series, which everything that they touch upon in the show is in Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z. And in Dragon Ball, he's like barely learning like the Kamehameha wave, which he gets to, he shows off in this. But like in Dragon Ball Z, well before he can go like Super Saiyan, there's people that are just doing like world-ending powers and stuff like that. Whereas this, it's a lot like in Dragon Ball, it's a lot more like smaller scale. Like it's a lot about the martial arts tournaments. Not,
yeah, you're telling us I'm
not
Broly.
fighting in exactly, not fighting in space, and then everyone's trying their hardest, and like they're so strong that they can fly around, like blow up mountains, but they're nowhere near the capability of going Super Saiyan. So. Again, this is like deep cut knowledge where I feel like the makers of this movie didn't really care about any of like that. Any of that stuff. So I feel like they easily could have just been like, fuck that. I think he looks cool with blonde hair. So let's just do that.
Well, yeah, and you could put that on the poster. You're not going to put
Yeah.
this terrible looking ape on a poster anywhere,
No.
right? And because
Oh,
it just looked,
God.
it looked like
so
they did it,
bad.
and then midway through, they're like, we shouldn't have done this. We didn't have the budget for this. And he was looking gnarly.
My guess for why they wanted to do that, as opposed to like it being Dragon Ball and this is what happens in Dragon Ball, it's just this hidden thing, like this hidden monster that everyone's kind of fearing, and Goku doesn't know that it's within him, and nobody really knows that it's within him except for Grandpa Gohan, who's dead. So I think that's why they chose it this way, because he's, and again, like if you didn't know the show and then they're foreshadowing this great demon ape thing that's coming, and then he has to fight it, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what he's training for. He's got to defeat this thing, and then maybe it's a plot twist when you find out that it's him the whole time, right?
Yeah.
And
This was just
like-
shoved
like-
in there, though.
yeah, this was shoved in though, and like it's so weird why they chose that, because it's not even like that's the reason why Grandpa Gohan died. It's not like in the show. It's, oh yeah, my grandpa died of this huge monster, and ever since then I've been trying to find the monster, and like get my revenge, for an example,
Yeah.
like that sort of storyline. But in this, it's just, oh yeah, the house came down, and I don't really know what I'm doing right now. I'm just got to get the balls, I guess, to defeat Piccolo. The world's over.
And that's one thing. I just name dropped him last week because I've seen like a few little things here and there, and I was thought, oh, Piccolo's like a cool looking character. I like him. As far as a villain on this, they give him like a few lines of like, oh yeah, he got trapped in this jar and he's really mad and he used to be like a king or something. But he is just like super generic dark elf #1 from Thor: Dark World. Like he is
such a good run. He reminded me of like Malekith for sure.
He did.
Yeah.
But he had nothing going on. There's no, like, they don't even try to make him an interesting character. And the only reason I said it is because James Masters, who plays him, is like a really like can be a good actor. He was in Buffy. He played Spike, so he has talent. He's not like just some Joe Blow like we talked about, like got off the street for Hunger Games in their newscast. He has talent. So one, they caked him in makeup, so it's tough to see. But two, he's just an evil guy looking to just kind of destroy the world. That's it. That's really it. And there's no substance there. There's nothing. And
it seemed like he had very minimal lines too.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
At least like drawn out lines, like just not a lot of dialogue whatsoever.
Yeah.
I had a random question based on one of the things you said in there, Kirklin. So at one point, when Goku's like, I don't know, he's in that like Harry Potter shadow realm where he's like, almost dead, and he's like comes back to life or whatever. And the guy, I can't remember the character's name, but he does a Kamehameha to like bring him back to life or something like that.
Oh,
can you explain? Because I thought
Jesus.
Kamehameha was like how you activate the giant beam. I didn't know it was also like a healing thing.
Yeah, it's not as far as I'm concerned.
Was it just to be
when
like
he
a
did
big
that,
power surge? Is that kind of the
I
idea?
guess so, because it's pretty much just like a concentrated like airwave. Like that's essentially what it is. Like I think
I don't know, if you break down like the Japanese like translation from like kame, it's something like
Okay,
that.
okay.
And fuck yeah. So like when he's like rubbing his hands together, he's doing this like Karate Kid type healing motion.
Human
I
defibrillator.
was yeah, so like I don't understand like the logistics of that. Like, is he getting electricity to just bring his health back? Like, I have no idea what that's supposed to mean, and that does not happen in the show as far as I'm concerned. So it's definitely just the writers. Oh, how do we bring Goku back? Let's get the master to use this
Right.
technique.
That's funny
But
because
that
like,
definitely doesn't happen.
as a casual fan, there's like a few like truths that I have, right? And one of them is like, if you do a Kamehameha, that's a big, powerful attack. So I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, is it just the, like I don't know, an alchemy thing? Like it's whatever you want it to be. I don't really.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny.
Even like just seeing him like using it as like a like when he was blowing out the candles, for example, like when it just was going out with smoke and stuff, like that's just so new. Like I don't think that's ever been used like that in the anime as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. It's definitely not in Dragon Ball, because they have like ki blast, which I'm sure you guys have seen, just like quick little like blasts that come
Right.
out of their hands,
Yeah.
just like a yellow beam. So those are just like the quick ki blasts, which in this everything was really slow and just like smoky-esque, like it had that sort of feel to it. And then like the big Kamehameha blast. But no, there's not really different
Okay.
versions of it. Like, I mean, like there is to an extent, but it's all like the
Yeah.
powerful attack moves, right?
Yeah, good to know.
Boy,
Um,
I think I'm just so happy, like, because like I said, I'm somebody, I've had people on tour be like, oh, like I said, watch Kai, and there's one day I think I may jump into Dragon Ball. I am just so happy we watched that now. For the little knowledge I do have of Dragon Ball, if you would have been explaining this last week, I would have been so not tuned out, but just like, oh man, I don't give a fuck about Dragon Ball even more so
Yeah.
now, because like when you now just like knowing little touchstones, and then because with Broly, like I said, I was completely new to Dragon Ball, so I did a lot of research into some of these characters and the arcs and whatnot, so that got me invested. This would have done the opposite of not getting me invested, but it's just like hearing, like obviously how upset you are, but just hearing it explain how somehow they're trying to do it in this movie, but it's not really. It's just, yeah, it's just it's a strange movie overall. Like it is a bad movie, but
Yeah.
just overall, like I said, it's funny what they decide to cut, what they decide to use, and I guess it's just kind of like any other kind of comic movie we've done in the past, where it just seems like there was a lot of chefs in the kitchen and a lot of, hey, you got a time frame, you got to do this, because it's just I don't know, because I feel like there's certain things you could just put in or leave out just to make little things better, even if the movie is still bad. But I don't know. I'd love to sit down with these people and hear them talk about, because most of them just say they've just regret it and they say it was a really bad movie. But it's just trying to hear you explain it in this. Last week, hearing you explain things in the Broly thing is like, oh, this is wild, but I can understand it in the sense of this film. Hearing you explain versus this movie, not so much.
I'm definitely glad we did the Broly, because it's like you guys had at least had some positivity on Dragon Ball, whereas if we started with this, it's like, yeah, I'm never watching that series. This is ridiculous. Yeah, it's frustrating, because I mean, just beating a dead horse basically at this point, but like so many things that I love about the Dragon Ball series, and like so many character relationships that like grow over just different arcs, right? That like before I didn't like this certain character, but then they just grew on me. And then like in this movie, I just feel like because it's an hour and 16 minutes westernized, they're in America, just so many things are different and they're just trying to change things. It was like a headache. Like it was tough to get through. I am never going to watch this movie again. I'm glad we at least, get to do it for a podcast.
Yeah.
Not like watching it like Taylor. I just watched it for no
Poor
reason.
guy.
Don't even get to talk to anyone about it. Just
No.
That's the real
have that
tragedy
in
of
your
all
mind.
this, honestly.
Yeah, that is the big.
It feels like a horror movie where Carl just wanted to spread the disease to us, because he saw. And if you read it, like I should have got his message, but when he read it to us, he said it was like a movie that really hurt him. I'll pull it up, because it did sound like it did emotionally scar him, but then he also wanted to emotionally scar us. So Carl, I hope this was
Yeah.
worth it. I hope you feel we feel your pain. Don't worry, we definitely do. But yeah, I don't have many notes. The only other note I had, which is this something that happens in a movie. In movies in general, because at one point they are breaking, entering. If a door is unlocked and you just walk into it, even though you don't know the person and you're going in to get something, that's still breaking and entering, isn't it? If you don't know the person,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Breaking and entering.
Because
anyways,
I
even
can't
if you know
remember.
the
I
person.
think the girl with the turquoise hair. I keep forgetting her name,
Bulma.
but she Taboma.
No, just
Sh-
Bulma.
Bulma, Goku's like, don't go in there, and it's breaking air, and she goes, not if the door is unlocked, and then she walks right in, and it's like, that's not true, that's a lie. Let's see, here was Carl's message when he told us what movie he was picking. Hey guys, I'm not a fan of this movie, and it broke my heart, but I would love to hear your opinion on it and what they should have done. So I'd like to pick Dragon Ball Evolution. And Carl, that's how I knew you were fucking us, because you didn't tell me the movie right away. You gave me the whole like something really hurt me, and then you dropped Dragon
Sob
Ball.
story.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Evolution. And it's like, oh man. So Carl, and because I think I have some trivia, but I don't have anything else to add on this movie. My final thoughts were, the movie started with Goku. I think one of his first lines was "Prepare to eat dirt," and man, I ate all the dirt and shit sandwiches watching this movie. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and it's not even like The Room where it's so bad it's so good. It's just one of those. It's just awful. And for me, I think I got to drop at the big old 0 out of 10 when I get to the rating portion. I'm not sure of rating, but I'm just dropping it out because I'm free flowing. I don't have. It's kind of like Kirklin said. I don't have anything positive to say. It's not even like sometimes in a really bad movie there's somebody that gave a good performance. There's not. There's no good acting. There's no good dialogue. The CGI and the effects are bad. The story's bad. The character's bad. Right? Like editing's bad. Like everything. Like filmmaking 101. Even if you don't go to film school, there's probably a book that says filmmaking for dummies. They didn't even read that, and I don't understand what happened. So yeah, that for me is it's a big old 0 out of 10 for myself.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, I mean, I don't rate stuff, but I feel like I'd be pretty dang close to that because, I mean, there's 100 different or millions of ways you could use a 10-point rating scale. But, you know, I think if you're looking at a really bad movie, you could say, okay, is there any points to be given? And, yeah, I don't even know. I would have to do some digging, some soul searching to find even one positive thing to say.
Yeah.
A real bummer. I don't think this, like, takes me off the trail of Dragon Ball. I'm still intrigued, and I think, was it Carl or was it someone else who mentioned Kakarot, like the game that came out in January, new Dragon Ball game, which I think looks fun, and maybe I'll pick it up someday because I think that might be a good way. He said it's a good way to experience the story. So I don't know. I'd like to maybe try that. I think that's a good way to go, but I don't know. This is a very I guess this movie is so bad that I don't even associate it with the movie we watched last week. So that's good. It's got some distance in that sense. So Carl, this was a savage recommendation, my friend. But
oh yeah,
I don't know. Gotta do what you gotta do.
You just mentioning like the Dragon Ball games. Like my favorite Dragon Ball game from back in the day, PS2, is Dragon Ball Budokai. It was pretty much like an arcade fighter, sort of like Mortal Kombat, but like it brought you through the story, and like that's definitely a good way to experience just the Dragon Ball Z storyline. Is usually through the games. They do a really good job at just taking you through these battles and stuff to get to play as these characters. When Kakarot came out, there was a lot of things that made me want to get it, but I mean, I'm not a millionaire, so I can't get every game right. And plus, I felt like I had already like spent a fair bit of money on like Dragon Ball games, so I didn't think I like needed to just get every single one. But sorry, did you say it didn't get the best reviews?
No, it's like okay, I think is the general
fairly
consensus
average
on it.
Yeah, I had a buddy at work that he was really liking it,
cool.
and he definitely recommended it to me. But definitely, I might check it out sometime in the future. Unlike this movie, I will never be watching this again.
No?
I will never be recommending this. If anything, it's the complete opposite. I will tell people to burn this copy if they ever find it in physical. I don't. Is there any out there? There must
Probably.
be.
Physical media? Oh, I bet.
I bet
Let
Taylor
me buy
has it. Steel case.
Yeah.
Yeah. This. I definitely feel. Sorry, who's the gentleman that recommended this?
Carl Ritchie. Yeah.
Yeah, Carl. Yeah, I definitely feel your pain, man, because I feel like you're fairly hardcore Dragon Ball fan like I am, and this is just so depressing.
Oh my god. Blu-ray on Amazon, $26.
Oh.
That's a fucking crime.
$26.
That's more than Kakarot.
Oh my god.
I don't know.
Oh my god. That's
There's two versions of the. Oh no, it's bilingual. That's why. So you can get the bilingual Blu-ray for $26. You can get the DVD for $9.
That is,
but then
that is a massive upsell to get from one language to two.
And then if you want the U.S. import, it's DVD, not Blu-ray. DVD, $46.
Jesus Christ.
$15 used. Wow.
What?
That's scary.
That is such a. Maybe someone just destroyed the copy for you, so you don't have to worry.
Maybe
about
there's
doing that.
actual money in there. That's why it costs so much. Maybe there's like another, like one of those games you guys were talking about also pair with that, because yeah, that's criminal. Are you guys Are you guys are you guys ready for some trivia?
I'm ready.
I forgot to drop a 0
Yep.
out of 10. That's what
I think we figured since
I'll do
we,
it too. I'll do it too for a GV
Yeah.
first. Everyone's giving it
Yeah.
a 0.
I think we knew when this podcast started and we heard your voice, it was going to be a 0. So,
just my big sigh before I
Yeah.
started talking.
and like I said, I honestly didn't get much trivia because there wasn't anything that interesting, and most of it was just people complaining and stuff like that. And it was a lot of like, oh, this actor was trying out for this role, but it was a bunch of no names. Like no one, like even superhero stuff. When you hear, oh, this guy was almost this, it didn't sound like many people wanted to be a part of this. But Vegeta, if there was a sequel, was planned to be the villain of that. So there you go, Kirklin. You could have got that, unfortunately. But that was the plan for the
Unfortunately.
sequel. Let's see here. Dragon Ball Evolution was one of the films that, I already talked about the studio. They rushed out because of the writing strike. James Masters, who played Piccolo, has expressed his hatred for this film many times. Emmy Rosen, she played Trabano or Brano. What was her name?
Bulma?
Sorry, who are you talking
Bulmer?
about? Bulma. Bulma. Bulma Briefs.
Bulmer. She named it the worst movie in her career, said that people shouldn't watch it, and she said the movie is also even worse if you watched while stoned. So I guess she tried many ways.
She's gone down a
Sure.
dark
That's
path.
amazing.
Yeah. The creator of Dragon Ball Z was initially supportive of the announcement of the live-action adaptation and asked fans to treat the film as a different interpretation of his work. But after watching the film, he was so horrified by this adaptation. He was so horrified of this adaptation that he decided to revive the series with an animated film, Dragon Ball Z Battle of the Gods. He later revealed that he wasn't allowed to have any creative input on the film, and his suggestions were rejected by the studio. So, which, does make sense because we've kind of talked about this before. Like, we have this with video game movies, right? Like, what is the line between creator and new creator? And I think there's a fine line, but I think it is still good where you want to bring the person in to have some input, not just to fully cut them off. And it sounds like they just cut them off. So.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think on the Broly I was mentioning like that Dragon Ball GT show.
Yeah.
That it's not canon and it wasn't made by the same creator, but the creator that did like the art style, Kira Toriyama, he like helped create some of the character art styles, but like the storyline he was not involved in, and a lot of people just hate the storylines that happen. So it's funny when you get that, right?
Yeah. Ron Perlman, who played Hellboy, he's been in a bunch of other stuff. He was offered the role of Lord Piccolo, but turned it down to work on Hellboy 2: The Golden Arm. He's one of the only people of note, and
I was just picturing him just all green.
so different to that big old
Fuck.
voice too. Like
Yeah.
but that was it. And then the last two that I have here, writer Ben Ramsey has apologized for the film, admitted he got death threats from Dragon Ball fans since its release.
Holy
He also
fuck.
admitted to only having written the film for a paycheck. So that is your example right there, where someone put a pile of manga and the show on his desk. He skimmed over it and he went, I'll put this in, I'll put this in, I'll put this in. And that's why it's like, again, that's kind of the answer when we're talking about of why is there some stuff but not any. It's because some guy just maybe threw some stuff together or not some. He admitted that he just did it for a paycheck. So he just threw some stuff together and wrote. And here's to me the big bombshell. And as much as I hate the prequels, I think they're nowhere bad as this. George Lucas was considered to direct this film back in 2012 or 2002 when it was in early production. So
Wow.
at the end of the day, yeah, it would have been. You could have got Hayden Christensen as Goku. That would have been fun.
Fuck,
But
I would have been down.
and that's where like the prequels, it's like they are bad, but it's like you can go, oh well, visually or effects, they really push things. It's like Gollum, right? Like Gollum and the prequels were these two film franchises that really pushed effects forward years and years. So it's like at least there's stuff, and there's so many things. I think there's great performances. The prequels were great moments. So even the prequels, and that's why I always say put in perspective. Some movie you might watch and go, oh, that's a bad movie, but sometimes there's other movies that are just horrid, and I think that's what we all thought about Dragon Ball Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Fuck. I definitely agree with people that were hating this movie, but I don't think it's ever okay to send death threats,
No,
especially for a guy that was just doing it for a paycheck.
He's just trying.
So people always take it to the extremes.
Oh
man.
yeah, he's just trying to earn a living and whatnot. I just want to see. Did you guys have anything else to say before we got here? I just want to see what else this guy had actually written because I had not looked into that.
Yeah,
this
I'm
Ben
I'm
Ramsey
just
guy.
going through the IMDb of some of these involved people. The girl who plays Chi-Chi has done a bunch of video game voices. So that's cool.
Oh. Yeah, and the other girl, she's on like Shameless and whatnot. She kind of had a career, but
Emmy, she was in Mystic River. I was trying to figure out if that was her.
Oh
Or not.
yeah.
She's what's his name's daughter?
What's his
Fucking-
name?
Sean Penn.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Sean Penn's daughter. She's also in Day After
And who
Tomorrow.
is Go?
Oh yeah, she wasn't Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah. The guy who plays Goku. What would I know him from? I know I recognize him from something.
I did not know he was a Canadian actor until today.
Yeah,
I
no,
had to look that up.
I may have seen him, but I've never seen him. And so I know he was in a Netflix show last year that got canceled.
Apparently he's
but
in
about-
War of the Worlds, but I feel like I don't know. Maybe I
Mhm.
guess it's
Oh
probably from
yeah,
that.
he was
Tom
Tom
Cruise's
Cruise's like
son.
asshole son.
Okay, yeah. That's probably
Yeah,
why
there
it's
you go. That's a
distantly
good pull.
familiar.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and
funny.
this writer has only written 4 things. One of them was a short film, but he wrote something in 1998, and then he wrote something in 2002, and then he wrote something in 2009. I'm gonna have to look into him because I don't know how he was getting these gigs. It didn't look like he had much of a. He was an actor before, so yeah, that is Dragon Ball Evolution. We did it.
Yeah.
We
We
hope you
did it.
enjoyed it. If you want us to, review a movie, hopefully it's something a palate cleanser in the future. The next thing we're reviewing is the Batman Arkham games, and I can tell you those are much better
Mhm.
than than these. Unless we get any other movie ones, those are going to be fun reviews, and there's some good stuff at least to talk about there. But thank you for. Let's get out of here. Thank you very much for tuning in to this review. When you hear from us next, it'll not be boring.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Oh, we did it, fam.
We did it. No, yeah. That's funny.
Uh,